J.R.R. Tolkien's classic trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, has gripped those who love rich literature and enthralling adventure for almost 7 decades now. It features a host of fantastic characters, many of which are said to have some sort of symbolic scriptural reference as their basis. Others, however, seem to stem more from Tolkien's personal experiences, perhaps extrapolated as projections of what he imagined should have happened in a figurative and rather fanciful manner. Take, for example, the Ents of Fangorn Forest. For those unfamiliar with the story, Ents are mobile, tree-like, sentient beings that are immensely strong, able to speak, albeit quite slowly, and hold counsel with each other to plan and coordinate their activities. Some have speculated the Ents in Lord of the Rings were a personification of nature that was able to fight back against the ravages of war, perhaps inspired by Tolkien's experience of seeing countrysides, which he loved, being wantonly devastated during World War I and II. Described as tree shepherds in his book, these creatures are said to communicate, sympathize with, and protect the trees and other peaceful inhabitants of the forests they live in. And their connectivity and sensitivity to their earthly surroundings are demonstrated in this quote from their leader, known as Treebeard, at the end of Tolkien's trilogy. "The world is changing. I feel it in the water, I feel it in the earth, and I smell it in the air." As otherworldly as these anthropomorphized tree avatars might be, what's truly amazing to find out is that Tolkien's tales of talking, feeling, and smelling trees might not be as far out as one might first perceive them. Modern science is now showing that trees are now known to form vast communication networks that some scientists are describing as potentially providing more interconnectivity between living things than the World Wide Web that we call the Internet. It's humbling to realize I'm now old enough to encounter young people who have no idea what the triple W's at the beginning of a website even stand for, as the very first website was made available to the public on August 6, 1991, over 30 years ago now. And yet, research into what is now being designated as the Wood Wide Web, as a tribute to the cohesive, interconnected communications we now know occur throughout the vast number of forests found around the world, was first coined in a Nature magazine article in 1997, just 6 years after the establishment of the first website. Now, for those of us who saw the transition from when the internet was simply not a thing to where we are today, we understand that it has brought about the ability for the entire human population to connect in a way that no other single invention in Earth's history ever has previously. Typewriters, telegraphs, telephones, all pale in comparison to the monolithic impact the internet has brought about in such a short time, allowing us to educate, entertain, perform transactions, conduct research, provide early warnings, conduct meetings, and share ideas like no human invention has ever done before. According to the Statista website, there are around 5.3 billion internet users worldwide, which amounts to approximately 65% of the global population as of October 2023. Which is a lot of connectivity between that staggering amount of living human beings. However, this wood wide web of life I mentioned makes man's achievements absolutely pale in comparison to this much more ancient global network that also likely dwarfs it in size. In a nutshell, pun intended, the Wood Wide Web is a network that connects trees in such a way that they can share food, information, and even formulate specific plans to accommodate various conditions and even specific events that occur throughout their region. So, what exactly connects and allows communication and cargo to travel between individual trees over an immensely wide area? Surprisingly, it's primarily the filaments, called hyphae, that flow from a wide variety of mere mushrooms that send their tendrils, mycelium, throughout the soil and attach and surround tree roots. fusing these branching nodes into a massive communication network called the mycorrhizal network. It's hard not to notice the similarity to the decision-making ability that our current AI programs have, in comparison to what the mycelia network readily displays in the statements and conclusions expressed by researchers studying the Wood Wide Web. For example, in a Science Direct article discussing the concept of mycelial consciousness, the abstract states, "Fungal mycelia show decision-making and alter their developmental patterns in response to interactions with other organisms. Mycelia may even be capable of spatial recognition and learning, coupled with a facility for short-term memory." Based on the fact that hyphae and mycelia show decision-making capabilities and exhibit spatial recognition, they conclude these abilities are expressions of cellular consciousness, learning, and short-term memory, which is truly mind-blowing to consider when talking about an organism you typically chop up with butter and onions to garnish your dinner plate. Tolkien's intriguing idea of ancient tree shepherds overseeing the health of their forest community is now known to be amazingly accurate, as scientists have discovered that the largest and oldest trees in an area, named mothers, act as hubs in their community, actually nurturing their offspring directly by devoting extra resources to them throughout the network when needed. In effect, these trees with the most tree rings become the ringleaders in their areas. For example, should a small sapling growing in the shade of the surrounding taller trees be struggling from the effects of lack of sunshine, the lack of nutrients typically gained from photosynthesis, its mother will feed it more through the network in order for it to grow and eventually reach a height where it can receive regular sunlight. However, the interconnected cooperation observed through the Wood Wide Web has been demonstrated to far exceed a simple mechanism for individual species to better reproduce. Researchers have discovered cooperation between species, such as how extra nutrients will be provided to shorter evergreen trees that often end up in shaded environments in summer by the taller trees, as the deciduous trees are in full leaf, but that the favor is then reciprocated in the wintertime by the evergreens back to their now leafless neighbors, who can't produce as much during that time. Studies have also shown that trees can send detailed warnings to those around them via chemical messages sent through the network. For example, a tree attacked by insects may sound the alarm to trees nearby, which will then activate specific enzymes to ward off that type of insect, should the insects attempt to spread towards them. And some even send messages through the air by emitting puffs of ethylene gas in response to animals, like giraffes, for example, that have approached to eat their leaves. Studies have shown that trees that are targeted by such herbivores will not only activate defense processes to make their leaves taste bad by accumulating increased amounts of tannins in their leaves, but will also warn other trees nearby via this airborne messaging to do the same, as if in anticipation of the long-necked leaf eaters visiting and munching on them as well. This, of course, results in trees not being completely devastated in one shot by animals camping out and deciding to use them as an all-you-can-eat buffet, by encouraging creatures to spread out their grazing over wider areas. Of course, the fact that trees have the ability to change the taste of their leaves, especially that quickly, and somehow know that it will be distasteful to the herbivore and therefore benefit the trees, is mind-boggling as well. Although they don't have our five senses exactly, they somehow must have a monitoring and sensory system that recognizes when they're being eaten, which then activates a normally inactive program that sends out a warning and causes a chemical change inside the leaves. And then, once the danger has passed, switches them back once the threat is gone. I would say such incredible discoveries are truly a testament to our incredible Creator. As Romans 1:20 reminds us, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that they are without excuse."